Hello, we're back at it. We are on Learning Guide 8 now in Pre-Calculus 11. And our topic now is we're going to be using the quadratic formula. Now, this quadratic formula for grade 11, you have it on your formula sheet, so you don't have to memorize it, but after grade 11, when you get into grade 12 and then beyond, you need to have this memorized. And it's used to find the x-intercepts, or we say in math, find the roots. So this new word, roots. And sometimes in math you hear the word zeros. Okay, that's another term used for finding the x-intercepts. Because when a parabola comes down and goes up again, and if it goes through, let's draw the x and y axis. So we are looking for these points, so our zeros, okay? Now, we have to have it in standard form, so very, very, very important. Make sure it's in standard form. All right, and make sure there's a zero there. All right, so when we are using the quadratic formula, in this first example, right here, I look at it and I realize it's not in standard form. So I have to do some rearranging. So I'm going to take this 4 and bring it over. All right, so you've got to get it into equaling 0. So now I have it in standard form right here. Okay, then I always write the A, the B, and the C. And when I'm in grade 11, and I would strongly recommend you guys, please write this down. Because as you write it down each time you come to a problem, you'll get to memorize it. All right, so then I plugged and chugged. All I did is plugged and chugged. Plugged all the values in, the B's, the A's, the C's, the A's, and then just work down. And you can use your calculator. I would strongly recommend, because it's so easy to make a little math error, a mental error. So just take this guy, what's under the radical, and just use your calculator, and then you don't get any errors. Okay, and then what came out is a 0. So the square root of 0 is 0. So then I'm left with this, and then I just simplified it, and then there's the answer. And you can check, right? You can check by plugging that in there and there, and if -4 equals -4, you know it's a solution. All right, and we'll come up with other ways of checking as well. All right, so let's move on. Now we have some try questions. So you can pause your video here and then write the answer. Okay. So in this question here, the first one, I'll go through it, so hopefully you follow the same steps as I. So the first thing I always do is I always write the ABCs. So let's go over here. The A is 3, the B is 5, and the C is -2. I always write this down because it helps me memorize it. Then I plugged and chugged. All right, so just putting in those values. I used my calculator to find, and then what it came to, let's just go up here, -5 plus or minus the square root of 49 all over 6. And we know what the square root of 49 is. So that's 7. Now at this point here, if you made an error, it's right here. Because when you go to your calculator now, you have to do the positive and the negative. So I always do a bracket, very, very important if you're using your calculator. Negative 5 plus 7, close the bracket, divided by 6. That equals 1/3, so there's one answer. And then negative 5 subtract 7 divided by 6, and the other answer is negative 2. All right. Okay, the next one, we're going to clear some fractions. Because I don't like working with fractions, so if you clear the fractions at the beginning, you can work with easier numbers. So I look for a common denominator, so I have a 2 and a 2, so 2 is my common denominator, so I multiply everything by 2. Okay, that 2 gets rid of that 1, so 1 times that is t squared, and then 2 times that is negative 2t, and that 2 takes that out, so it's minus 5, and then 2 times 0 is 0. Now I have my ABCs. So my A is 1, my B is negative 2, my C is negative 5. Okay, so I plug them in, and same thing over here, but I'm just going to go down. Now I got to 2 plus or minus the square root of 24 over 2. All right, so now when I'm at this stage here, the question is asking me, and I'll just highlight it for you, we're doing it to the nearest hundredth. So that means I have to change that radical into a decimal. So this guy right here, I type into my calculator, what is the square root of 24 to 2 decimal places, and I got 4.90 over 2. All right, now I have to do the two camps. So the positive camp using this positive, and then the negative camp using the negative, and I got 3.45 and negative 1.45. So those are the answers. Now I'm going to show one thing it doesn't say here, but you'll see it in the work. It's going to ask you, instead of to the nearest hundredth, it's going to say exact. It wants the answer exactly. Okay, so when you see the word exactly, you cannot have decimals. So I'll just highlight that. No decimals. Okay, do not have decimals when it says exact. So what do I do now is when I get to this stage, we have to jailbreak this guy now, like we did in grade 10. Well, the jailbreak, if you remember back, it's going to be, well, 24, so it goes 2 and 12, 2 and 6, 2 and 3. And we remember that because the index is 2 there, these two buddy up and only one survives. So 1, 2 gets out, and these guys are stuck because they have no buddies. So that's what that equals, okay? Plus or minus 2 all over 2. Now you cannot say you're done, because we have to look at this number, and this number. Can something go into them? Yes, 2 can. So 2 can go into all those. So the final answer is 1 plus or minus the square root of 6. So if it says exactly, that's the answer we want. Okay, now strategies to solve. So you can graph, all right? Graphing is you just take the picture and you find the x-intercepts. So there you're just looking for x-intercepts. Okay, you're just getting the x-intercepts. Factoring, always try to factor first because sometimes it's way quicker than using the formula. All right, so if I gave you a question like this, I would not use this. I would just say, okay, factor x minus 3 plus 2 equals 0, so x equals 3 and x equals negative 2. You can get the answers so much quicker. Now the quadratic formula is used when you can't factor. Okay, so you have to use that. All right. Now the last topic is topic 2, which we're going to talk about the discriminant. Okay, the discriminant just tells you the nature of the roots. So it tells you the nature of the roots, which means you could have two distinct roots, which means the parabola comes and it crosses twice. So it touches there and touches there. So it's 2. This is a typo. It should be one equal root or one distinct root. That's when the parabola comes down and say like that, just touches once. Or you can have no real roots. That's when the function, or the parabola, comes and doesn't touch. All right. Now how we know is all we do is we take the discriminant. This is the discriminant, this part right here. That's the part under the radical. And we just plug and chug. And if we get an answer that is greater than 0, like 1, 2, 3, whatever, you know it's got 2 distinct. If it's equal to 0, it's got 1. And if it's less than 0, it has no roots. Okay? So here's an example I just did. I took this guy, I put it into the nature, and out came 73. Well, I know if it's 73, there's going to be 2 roots. Okay? 2 roots. And I just checked it here with the calculator. Now, you can try these ones and just make sure you list your A, B, C's and plug in. So your A here is 2, your B is negative 8, and your C is 9. And when I type that into that minus, or my B squared minus 4AC business, I got negative 8. So you should say no roots. This one here, you don't have to get rid of this fraction because you can just use your calculator. So you have your A is 3, your B is negative 4, your C is 4 over 3. You plug it into the discriminant. So plug it into this formula. And I got 0. So 0 means 1